from our colour and our meridian, what we need to be able to do is to then go through the different eye positions. And we said the first one is not technically an eye position, but check for the cranium. And the second one is you want to go for is the ATP. And we talked briefly about how you do that with the different pathways. You might consider the light therapy for the person who's shot. This is right fairly high up. This is fairly, yes, it's fairly early. Yeah, sorry, that's why I was trying to find it. So when we look into it, ATP would be the second. The third one would be infections, which you're all pretty much familiar with infections. When you find the page, just shout the number out, if you will. What? 39. Okay. So allergy. So if somebody shows up to the eyes to the right and down, strengthens against the colour there. What do you do? Because allergy or intolerance is usually it's something you've eaten, it's something you've drunk, it's something you've inhaled, or it's something you put on your skin. That more or less covers you for most things, doesn't it? So if you, let's assume you went out for a Chinese. Nobody went out for a Chinese meal last night, did they? Oh, yes, they did. Oh, and how did you feel this morning? Tired. Okay, that's what happened to Jill, remember. I did warn you. Okay, so tired. Now, is that tiredness because you had a late night, Clive? Or was it... No, this is the interesting thing. Is it a late night or is it a toxin? It's that tiredness, which is the toxic tiredness, is overwhelming. You know, it's when you really, you have difficulty in keeping awake. You just feel lousy. But you know you haven't been, you've probably had 7 hours sleep. But it's not because you're exhausted in that way. So could we borrow you a minute and sit yourself on the table then? So sit on there and face, yeah, just sit. You needn't take anything off there. Okay, so let's just take a strong indicator muscle. In this case, we'll do a little bit of first aid. So you push the elbow up and over above your head. Okay, right. Now what I want you to do is it just tiredness you feel at the moment? Mm-hmm. Or is there any other, you haven't come in an outbreak of hives or anything? No. Okay. So the possibilities, if he feels tired and it was something he ate, you see, what will happen here, it could be he picked up a bug. Not saying he has, so just follow my finger in the clear, round and round. If he got a headache, he would touch his head now. So he's going one way, push up. Okay. Did we do it that way? It was the other way we did first, yes. Yeah. So we've done both ways now. Okay, right. So it could be that. It could be a toxin he's got. So from MSG, so let's take him eyes to the left, eyes to the left, eyes to the left. Push. Oh. So he's toxin. Okay, I was hoping he was allergy, but he's toxin. Okay. So let's go to the eyes to the right and down. Eyes to the right and down. Eyes to the right and down. Okay, push. Now, so the possibilities are, it could even be mechanical. You know, he could wake up. Let's assume he could wake up with a headache. So you TL the head where it hurts, and then you do the eye positions and find out which position negates it. Then you've got the answer, all right, immediately. It's fantastic. You know? So what I had to do with Jill after she had her Chinese meal was I had to take the bull by the horns, get her to TL somewhere, she went weak over the kidney, and then do the eye positions. And it was as easy as that, really. Okay. So with you, we didn't have a headache. Okay. So we just did it in the clear. So you can use the eye positions in the clear. And unfortunately, we came straight up here. So if you'd like to get a couple of remedies out, we'll give them a remedy. So eyes to the left was what created the weakness. So this is a toxin. Obviously, this toxin is something more exogenous because it would be something that is coming from outside. It could be an endogenous toxin from some bowel fermentation, but that's much more likely to be an ongoing thing. What's that?
Lemon balm.
Lemon balm. Are you a green?
Yes.
Yes, so lemon balm would probably be the answer for you. So just go put some lemon balm on. Just keep your head still. Follow the finger to the left, left, left. So, wonderful lemon balm. Do we can go any further, really? Lemon balm is the answer to him. You know, it's the detoxer. Sometimes if it hasn't been lemon balm, I might try an NAC. What else are your favourites there? NAC, no, well, we can try NAC, but I don't think it will show. It may do. What else do you like?
Coriander seed?
Coriander, yeah, coriander spice and coriander herb, both very good detoxifiers.
Coriander leaf?
Coriander leaf. Just to show you that probably these aren't any good for Clive, that is. No, they're probably good for other people, but yeah, you see, it doesn't do anything. You've got to have the right one, the one that hits. Don't worry about it. We've got the one. So let's have some water, shall we? Let's give him some water. You've got some water there. Come on. Okay. Yeah, so if you like to swallow one of those capsules, okay, there's cyanide. Okay. Right. Because dehydration is something else I should have tested, really, isn't it? Because so often you're dehydrated when you're toxic. So let's just recheck him. And nah, he's going to be at least 2. Have another one. He's going to need some more water. Deirdre, can you bring some more water for him? Look after your man. I find as a green, lemon balm usually works well with me. I'm very fortunate I don't really have a problem. You swallowed 2 anyway, didn't you? That's 2. Yeah, did we? I think we did. I don't really have a problem with alcohol, but I have a big problem with chemicals. So, you know, green people were not made for the 21st century. We were made for 1700, which is really our time when there was no environmental chemical toxicity. That's why there's a lot of greens in Scandinavia, and they don't have chemicals really in Scandinavia, do they? It's beautifully clean and things. We should go and live in Scandinavia, really. Somewhere. Yeah, too late. So I find, you know, if I have a bad wine, you know, it's not just sulfates, it's chemicals, because they put a lot of other chemicals in. You know, I might react to the chemicals, so I might feel awful the next day. But it's not the alcohol. That's what I keep telling Jill. It's not the alcohol. It's the chemicals. Okay. It's something I ate or drank which has got chemicals in it. It's not the alcohol, and it was the same. It's the same, yeah. So it's definitely, this is a chemical toxin with you, and green people are very subject to this. We forget because we're pretty good in many other ways, but we are very chemically sensitive. So another one on the allergy one that we had used there was yarrow. Yarrow was a very good anti-chemical, anti-allergy when people show up to it. Okay, so that's how you can use the eye positions and just having your armament immediately, you know, think, this is a chemical. Let's think, and again, this will be the thing what we'll be doing in November, is chemical toxin or headache. What do I do? You know, check the following things. Check, you know, and make sure you've got NAC in there and yarrow, etc. So, now, obviously with allergy, true allergy, you get immunoglobulin response, so you actually get antibodies. With an intolerance, you don't get antibodies, okay? You can get histamine reaction, so you can get quite bad inflammation, but you don't actually get a systemic type 3, type 4 inflammation. You will get a local sort of inflammation, okay? But with an allergy and an actual immunoglobulin reaction, you do produce antibodies, and you will react to that substance every time or every second time that you have it, okay? Now, the common one, of course, the most common one there is gluten. People don't have allergies to lactose. You have an intolerance to lactose because it's a sugar, okay? But you can have an allergy to casein. So it's very important when your boxes, and you've got these, that if a person's suspicion is milk, that they don't have milk, or gluten, what is it exactly, you know? With gluten is gluten, and we know that it's in oats, and it's in rye and wheat and so on. But if it's milk that they're sensitive to, it could be the casein, in which case they probably have got a true allergic reaction. Or in a lot of people, it's lactose. And some people develop lactose intolerance later on. It's quite interesting. Not everybody's born with it. You know, some children are born with lactose intolerance, and they get terrible gripes in their tummy. You know, these are kids who get real colic, and it's the lactose that they can't do. They usually get diarrhea, but it's the colic, the wind and things, which is, you know, gives them a lot of distress. But sometimes it's adults. Adults, suddenly develop bouts of diarrhea and then they have it for months sometimes. And that can be a lactose intolerant that they've developed. Okay. So you, I think, were a little bit, you said, I'm a bit gluten sensitive. Wasn't it you? And a bit milk sensitive. Whatever that means, a bit of this and a bit of that. Quite a bit. Yes, how much you have, yeah. You really are what? What? Yes, well, we'll check you through in a minute. Jill will test you and see whether you are. Because some people are allergic to wheat. I don't doubt that. But it'd be going to be interesting to see whether they can tolerate proper wheat, as real raw wheat. What most people are intolerant to is flour, not wheat. And it's when the flour, because most flour is months and can be years old by the time you use it, it's rancid. Particularly if it's wholemeal, it's got the germ in there, so all the E is gone. And the wheat germ oil has just gone rancid. And that's what most people are allergic to. We haven't found really to date anybody who weakens to freshly ground organic wheat. Okay? But there are sometimes allergic reactions to the proteins, which is what a true allergy is. It's an immunoglobulin reaction to the protein. And as modern wheat has developed, it's developed more chromosomes, which has given it more encoding for more proteins. And that's made it more complex for the biology to say, I don't have the enzymes to digest this. And some people aren't blessed with that. So let's have a look at that. So remember, gluten can be an allergy on casein, but lactose is just an intolerance. Now, camel wheat officially is called Khorasan wheat. This is one of the simplest forms. So all wheat belongs to the genus Trichicum. From that classification, wheat can be divided into 3 groups based on their number of chromosomes. Yesterday we talked about haploids, diploids, etc. So diploid wheat contains 14 pairs of chromosomes. So remember, we contain 23. So we're not much more advanced than a bit of wheat. Okay, so 14 pairs. Pairs being, the 2 chromosomes, 14 of them, is the earliest grouping, diploid wheat. Cultivated varieties in this group are rare and very unusual in this day and age. The only example that's known is einkorn. Einkorn is available from Dove's farm, but as a flour. Unfortunately, they want to sell 100 tonnies at a time, which would be more than 100 sacks. If everybody's interested in einkorn and everybody promises to buy at least a sack, then we'll order it. You won't go home with a sack tonight. Okay. So that is the simplest form of wheat. It's like a cultivated grass. It was the easiest one, simplest chromosome structure, probably never had any indigestion. Einkorn was cultivated by the ancient Egyptians and has been found in the 4,000-year-old tomes of the Pharaohs. So that was probably the one the airman the story was that the airman was given this, but in fact he wasn't given the einkorn, he was given the camel. Tetraploid wheat, which indicates 28 sets of 4 chromosomes. This is complex, isn't it? Tetraploid wheat. So that's 28 sets. This is more chromosomes than the human body. Okay, plants are more complex in many ways than humans, than animals. So 28 sets of 4 chromosomes. So instead of 2, they've got now banks of 4 are more common. This includes ancient varieties such as Ema and Khorasan, otherwise known as camut wheat, as well as modern varieties such as durum. Now, a lot of people will tell you they can go and eat French bread in France, and they can eat Italian in Italy, and they can have pasta. Okay? But they come home and they eat a slice of bread in this country, and boom, they blow up and react to it. So durum is most commonly used to make pasta. And the most common wheat is hexaploid. That's 42 sets of 6 chromosomes. This is getting twice as complicated as a human being now, okay? With 6 sets and includes spelt. So spelt is quite a complex thing. It's not as simple as a lot of people think. Modern wheat bread and soft wheat used for cookies and cakes. So it's beginning to see why this is so complicated. And of course, modern wheat is much shorter, isn't it? Shorter straw. The older wheat is much taller straw, which they still do around Wiltshire way, certainly for thatching purposes, in the old fashion. Wild tetraploid wheat was thought to have occurred mostly in the Near East, where it was first gathered by men. So that was the earliest type of wheat. Varieties in early agriculture were not pure lines, but consisted of mixtures of closely related grains called landrace varieties. There's a real reason for this. And so in this contrast, the varieties of single lines that occur today, this is in contrast to the varieties of single lines that occur today with modern agriculture. The reason they mix them is that they improve the immunity. So the more genes and things they have, the mixing of that, they actually improve the strength of the wheat. When you single it out into one, you make people more vulnerable. Now this is we went to Korea in June for the ICAK international meeting there, and when we got off the airplane at the immigration, all the staff there were wearing masks. Did anybody go? Anne, you didn't go to that one, did you? No. They were all wearing masks.
No.
You better tell her she's got a microphone on.
Get mine first. I didn't get one.
Jill! Tell her she's got a microphone on, will you? Okay. So everybody was wearing masks. And so I asked the immigration officer, why are you wearing a mask? And she said, oh, because of Ebola. And I thought, oh, okay. And then some people wear masks, some weren't. But half the population wear a mask everywhere you went. The receptionist at the hotel, I was getting cross about this. To me, it seemed very rude to wear masks to people, and other people weren't wearing masks. And then they were chucking their masks out, and it was filthy, horrible. They cough and splutter in the mask and then chuck it down and things. And so later we discovered there had been an outbreak of MERS, as it's called, which came in from Saudi Arabia and was killing quite a number of people in hospitals who were terminally ill anyway. Okay, so it just finished them off a little bit more with some type of pneumonia and things. But they were paranoid about it. And the reason we realized or discovered they're paranoid is the Koreans, like the Chinese and the Japanese, don't intermarry outside of their race. So if a bug gets in there, it can go right through the whole lot because they haven't mixed. They tend to intermarry, and so they haven't got any European blood. In Europe, we're much better because we've intermarried. We've got a bit of this and a bit of that and so on, and that's actually improved the stock. This is why a good mongrel dog will probably never get ill, but you make a thoroughbred, like a horse or a dog, with a nice pedigree, and there'll be nothing but trouble. They're highly strung, they get ill, and they win races, but they're not from a health point of view. So these ancient forms of wheat were much more mixed with grasses and things, and were much more stable than other modern varieties. So the diversity of these land races gave protection against attacks from diseases. And that could be one of the reasons why now we have to spray so much, or they're trying to spray so much more, is because the wheat is more susceptible. If one strain was susceptible to attack, the other strains could be resistant and the whole crop would not be lost. So the camel wheat, or Khorasan, which is grown today, is a heritage grain and of a land race containing the same diversity and advantages of the ancient wheat. So it's a very old wheat and it's got those mixed genes in it. It was not native to Egypt. It was a mistake. The airman who brought it back was told it was what came from the Pharaohs, where it was first taken by the American airman in 1949. The airman was told that it came from the tomb, but it is more likely that the grain was purchased from a street vendor in Cairo, who could probably sell you anything in 1949. Street vendors in Cairo were known to sell all sorts of things. So the ancient grain of the Pharaohs was in fact einkorn. That was the ancient one that was in there. It is not known when it was introduced into Egypt. It was from the first grains that were grown in Mesopotamia. Fascinatingly, the person from Dove's Farm told us how they came across this and grew it from an old thatched cottage in Hungerford. They're located in Hungerford in Wiltshire. And the thatcher was taking this thatch off an old cottage, and he came across this straw, which they know a thing or two about straw, and he recognized that this was not a modern wheat in any way. And it was an old wheat, could have been a throwback or whatever. Took it to Dove's Farm and said, what do you think this is? And they took it to a university somewhere, and they said, good heavens, this is einkorn. It's an old wheat, and it could have been a throwback. They don't know. They could have been brought in by birds. Could have been just, in there. Anyway, it'd been there for hundreds of years in the thatch, and they grew it. And now they make einkorn wheat, which is the simplest of all the wheats and most digestible. Speculation about its origin includes introduction by the invading armies of ancient Greece and Romans or possibly the Byzantine Empire. Local legends are told by farmers in Turkey where the wheat can still be found growing in small plots. The legend says that Khorasan or Kamut was the grain Noah brought with him on the ark. Now, that's an interesting story, isn't it? Who can tell you whether that's truth or not? Shall we muscle test it, Clive? Oh, no, the seer over here, the oracle is Brian. No, whether Brian's arm says, yes, that's true or not, we must test. Okay, so interestingly, that Noah brought it with him on the ark. Okay, so Kamut wheat is high in protein and many minerals, especially selenium, and that's why I got interested in it. Zinc and magnesium compared to modern wheat. Very interesting combination. You know, it's much better balanced with the minerals and everything. Due to the unusual high content of selenium, which is a mineral known for its high antioxidant capacity, because it stimulates glutathione peroxidase, it can be classified as a good source. So I put down here, I won't go through all these because you've got them in there. But you can see, I put a couple of lines around here. Amino acids. Amino acids are pretty impressive. Glutamic acid there's a lot of glutamic acid in there. And proline. Proline is one of the most important constituents of collagen. So that's why I put it in there. And then we've got valine, isoleucine, and leucine are all fairly high. These are the branched chain amino acids. These are the ones that go twang when you do a lot of athletics and your blood sugar level is low. We give branched chain amino acids at times. So they're all rich in Kamut. So it's much richer in amino acids than modern wheat. If you compare that with a loaf of bread that you buy in the supermarket, which has probably got very little in there. It's got a whole range of fatty acids, some saturates and some unsaturates and polyunsaturates. It's got some phosphatidylserine, and that interested me because that's very good for the brain phospholipids, phosphatidylserine, ethanolamine, and a lot of phosphatidylcholine or lecithin in there. So that's a very good nut. Load of vitamins, you know, some of them are reasonable amounts, particularly the Bs. And it's got lutein and zeaxanthin. Yeah, the carotenoids which help us, as we learnt, with the eyes. So even though it's a small amount, nonetheless it's in there. And that's pretty impressive to have actually, you know, something more than just protein and carbs. It's got silicon, or silico, the words that we talk about there. Iodine, a little bit of iodine. Zinc, quite a lot of good amount of zinc. If you eat a good amount of bread, you'll get a nice lot of zinc. Magnesium is reasonably good in a kilo. You get a lot of magnesium in that, but you wouldn't eat a kilo. And selenium is equivalent to about 80 micrograms in a cup of it. You've all sampled the bread, or most of you, unless anybody is terrified that they're wheat sensitive and didn't sample. But you'll know you can't eat much more than a whole slice. You know, it's pretty filling. If you have a slice at breakfast, you know, only your son, who's into powerlifting and everything else, can eat 2 slices. Only your Ben. Nobody else has ever eaten 2 slices because it just fills you up, you know. And it doesn't bloat you. I've never got bloated on it. It gives you a good bowel movement and you get all the nutrients with it. So it's really good. So there's about the history there. So it's worthwhile looking at. If we test you, if you'd like to come out, Jill will test you. I'll just go and get was the wheat up? The wheat grains up here, or are they still outside? Oh, you got some there, okay. So let's clear the decks for you there. So what we want to do is to try a traditional wheat. Have we got a wheat? Is it wheat or gluten, do you think, your sense is? Gluten. Let's try. Have we got some gluten somewhere, have we? Is it? So we just test her for gluten to see whether there is a gluten sensitivity there. Well, they tell me, or the website for Kamut, and you can just look up Kamut on the website, and it'll tell you all about it in far more detail than that. That they've even put gluten actually into it to thicken it up for some people who wanted some bakers who wanted a stiffer bread. And again, people haven't bloated with it, even though it's had gluten added. So this gluten sort of is a bit of a mystery, whether it is actually gluten or whether, as I say, it's rancid oils. So if you take a good strong indicator muscle, we're working, pretty much just, in the clear here. You obviously wouldn't normally do this. You'd only do this if a person showed to the allergy eye position, really. Yeah, gluten. Yeah? Okay, so now you've got the choice. We can try whole wheat, you've got there, I think, which is organic, I was going to say cold pressed, but you can't get cold pressed wheat. It's just, yes, organic wholemeal wheat. This is what you would put in your mill to make your bread. Yeah. You see, we haven't found anybody we can do this. So that indicates if we put flour on there, we might see a different situation. We haven't got any flour. You can have a comment what you want. Now put on the kamut. She weakened to gluten, so we know that she's. It's just that you will find it's more than this gluten mystery is not just gluten. It's a combination of things, but it's kamut. She should be fine. What was the other one? You got a third one now. Spelt. Okay, let's try spelt as well. Now that doesn't mean she can go out and eat a loaf, but I think she can probably eat a freshly made wheat product without any problem. If she eats an old one, she probably will go weak. Trouble is we haven't got any. We'd have to find some. Bread is not wheat. Bread has got other things in it, so it's difficult to have a commodity where you can say the only thing we could test is flour, and we don't have any flour, unfortunately. But I would suggest that she's probably, it's a lot of it to do with flour and the fact that the flour goes rancid, it goes off after a period of time, and that's what seems to weaken people. In fact, most people weaken to it. It's a terrible admission that. See, we had a mill apparently in every village and every town years ago, and people would take their sack of wheat. They would store the wheat for the whole of winter, and they would take it down to the mill, and sometimes they had to wait all day apparently, and have it, and then they would use that for the week. In the winter, it could last as long as a month, but they never went over that. The lad would be sent down from mum to get another lot done. They never thought or dreamt of keeping it. Now, some of our wheat, some of our bread, our flour is years old, not weeks or months. They put the date it was milled, not the date it's sold by date, and it's not good. Oh, yes. Okay, good. So you're right, you are sensitive to gluten, but good whole wheat is not a problem. But if we had some rubbish on there, we can try to see if we can find a biscuit. But the trouble is that a piece of bread or a biscuit is not the same. It's because it's been, it's got sugar in it, and it could be yeast in there. There's all sorts of reasons why people can be sensitive to bread. Did you try just out of interest on a piece of the bread? Yes, there is. There's a bit on the board hidden around the back. You think I'd give it all away? So you notice that the kamut is a little bit crumbler. Yes, it crumbles a bit when you cut it. So you have a sharp knife to cut it so it's not too thick, there. But it does crumble more easily because it hasn't got the gluten, so higher gluten. It's only got half the chromosomes. This one? Yes. She's strong to that. Okay, well, we'll try. The restaurant's closed at the moment, but we can have her there, but ask at the bar for a piece of bread.